sing a happy song together, and we'll all be a happy family.
Well, hi and welcome back to my channel, and the next instalment on this Elizabethan 200 reel-to-reel tape recorder. And it's a gift that keeps giving, because my circuit diagram, although it bears some relationship to what I've got, there's a lot of differences. Now, I was looking at changing electrolytic capacitors in this, and I found there were six. There's six that I've circled on the diagram. Look at the actual machine. So far, I've only been able to find three, which are these two here and this one here. And values may be different as well. I don't think I've even got one there. I come to the conclusion that I've got a later machine. The original one was probably all point-to-point wired, and this one seems to have been, a lot of corners have been cut. For a start, these are not here. Well, this one is, but these two here, these cathode bypass capacitors, they're not there on this. If I take that pin on the valve, it goes straight to ground, and the same with this one, it goes straight to ground. Sorry, not this one, this one. So those two capacitors are not there. This one, there does seem to be at least something there. I don't know what value it is, whether it ties in with the values here. So at the moment, the state of play is that all I can find is three capacitors, and what I will be doing is going ahead and just replacing the can, which is two 32s, and I haven't got 32s, I've got 47s and 22s. So I figured I will replace C21 with a 47 and C20 with a 22, which will give me a total of, well, can I work that out? Yes, 69. And this would have been a total of 64. So there should be the same amount of capacitive smoothing altogether. So I don't think it will matter at all. This one, I'll see what value's in there and put something similar in. I don't think the one that's in there is going to be much good. As for the rest of it, I think I will just go through and check a few of the ordinary capacitors. One of the things that I know I've mentioned before is this selenium rectifier, which I want to replace with diodes. There seems to be a variable resistor on here, and I think that's tied in with this, so it's probably for adjusting the level displayed on here. Also got details on the valves. So there's the tuning indicator, and I've got information on the pinouts of that and what voltages I should find. So hopefully I can use this to work with it and try and get it correct. And the other two valves are here. Fortunately, the diagram does use the same valves, and I've got all the information on those. So yeah, what I'm going to do off camera is change the capacitors, which there's plenty of videos out there of people changing capacitors. So I'll probably tackle this one first, and so I'll put those two in instead of that. The other one I found is down here, tucked away at the back there. I'll take that one out, find out what value it's supposed to be, measure it, see what value it actually is. Probably change it anyway after all these years. That, as far as I know from it so far, will change all the three electrolytics that are in mine. There's not six like the diagram said. So what can you do? Just replace what's there. There is another selenium diode there, and I'm not quite sure what it's doing, and I think I'll probably just leave that little one as it is, as it seems to be working, but I do definitely want to change the main one. Right, okay, so now the capacitors, the electrolytic capacitors have been changed. It'll be very difficult to see on here, but at the back here there was one 68 microfarad capacitor, something like that, an unusual size, which was this one. No, 64 microfarads. So I've replaced that with the 47 and 22 in parallel. So those are now, that's the cathode bypass capacitor on the output. So that's been done. And the smoothing can capacitors I've changed for they were two 32s, I've got a 47 and a 22. So that gives me a 69 as opposed to 64 microfarad smoothing, but split with two different values. And that takes care of those. Now the surprising thing was that the can that came out on the low voltage Chinese tester actually really seemed to read ideal, seemed to be perfect. Now this thing's over 60 years old, and I'm not really going to risk leaving it in, but I've marked it as good and put it in my box so that if I desperately need smoothing caps somewhere else, I can always use it. But yeah, these are a couple of brand new ones, so hopefully they'll be fine there. And there's a resistor between the positives of these two caps. Then the other thing that's been done is the selenium rectifier, which is here. I'm definitely not keen on these things. And I'm thinking that as the smoothing cap was so good, the drop in voltage as the thing had been running for a few minutes was probably down to this thing. Also heard on someone else on YouTube who had the same tape recorder, and this went with the bad egg smell and everything else. So they're not expected to last 60 years, that's for sure. So that's been replaced now. This looks a bit tacky, I suppose, but what I've basically got, and it's a bit hard to see really, but I've fixed a brass piece or a copper piece there onto the chassis to support one side, and then soldered the bridge rectifier onto there, because this is all at 0 volts. In fact, it's connected to mains earth as well. So this side is all ground. And then the AC comes in on this grey and red wire from the transformer into the bridge rectifier there and there, which I put a bit of heat shrink on. And then, because these diodes are more efficient than the seleniums, I've added a resistor. Now that one, I'm not sure if it will be enough, but if it isn't, I can add another one after it. But what I thought was I would attach it there, so it's glued on there with epoxy resin. I've also put a cable tie over there, which is belt and braces, so I never trust glues, but I'm sure it will be fine. Then this is a positive connection, obviously this end goes through the resistor and on to the larger of the two caps over here. Now, because we've got the resistor one side and this the other side, this is all supported quite well. and I'll put heat shrink where this high voltage AC comes in. Once it's all assembled, there should be no fingers around, obviously, but while I'm working on it, I've got to be careful to remember that there's HT on that. But it's difficult really to do it. I didn't have a piece of tag strip, so I thought, well, okay, these are tiny, and this should be an adequate support for it. What I'll then do when I get round to repowering this up is measure what HT I get on the anode of the output valve and see what the valve spec gives me, because I've got no other information. And if it's not too high for the valve, then I'll probably accept that as being okay. The other things I haven't done yet is looking at any of these other capacitors, the non-electrolytics. There's like one of these mustard things there. There's some over here. Now, the small values are usually okay, but there's a Hunts in there. That will definitely have to go. I've never yet found a Hunts of this sort of vintage that was any good. So that Hunts will definitely be taken out. I'll only check resistors if I have any problems, but I'm not anticipating that because the set did still work. The next thing will be, as I say, just to check those. Then if I'm okay and happy with that, I'll start reassembling it. Obviously I've still got to do the lubrication of the mechanics. I've still got to refit the heads and pinch roller thing with piece of chassis that mounts across there. That's all got to go back on. And I've got to see whether the belts are too slippy or not once it's all been freed up. And it may just work once, because there's no old gungy grease anymore. It may work fine. So that's the state of play at the moment. So we've now got the recapping, or at least the electrolytics recapped. We've also got the rectifier changed and the resistor put in series with it. Volume pot's been done, and we're getting close to being able to start reassembling it, I think. So at that point, I'll say bye for now, and hope to catch you again in the next one. Take care.
Sing the happy song together, fill the air with harmony. Sing the happy song together, that's the song to choose. For pushing away the blues, keep the heartstrings throbbing, and the good times coming, if we keep on humming.